So we will make a start, right? So as you can see, what we'll have today is test case design. So today we'll be going through how to design test case, right? Or how to actually write our test case. But before we do that, we want to know what a test case is, look at the characteristics of a good test case, because that will help us know how to write a test case, right? We would look at the characteristics of a good test case, look at how to write test case, then look at what language we can use for test case, right? And that language is Gherkin language. So we'll look at what Gherkin language is, all right? Then under Gherkin language, we'll also look at Gherkin syntax, right? We'll look at what test script is and then question and answer. So it's going to be an interesting one today. It's going to be short. It will be straightforward. So I know that will have gone through SQL, building database, and all that, which is quite more technical, and yeah, might not be that much straightforward. But today we'll be looking at a very straightforward topic, right? So let's dive into it, right? What is a test case, right? So we're looking at a test case is a predefined instruction that outline the step to be taken. It is a predefined instruction, right, that outlines the steps to be taken, the data input to be used, and the expected results, right, which serve as a criteria for evaluating the success or failure of a specific functionality, right? So test case is that, predefined instruction, that step-by-step instruction, right? That tells you, that step-by-step instruction that you will take, right, to execute your test, that set of data inputs, right, that you can use, and that expected result. So what does this mean? So it means that when you are writing your test case, right, you would have to write a step-by-step that you will use to, let's say, for example, you are testing a login functionality, right? You first of all say, how do I start to log into that website, right? You will first of all look at, the first thing you will do is that you will navigate to URL, right? You will navigate to URL. After navigating to URL, what else do? You will click on login. After clicking on login, what you will do, you will enter your username, you will enter your password, and you click on submit. So when you want to write test case on how to test that particular functionality, right? How you will do it is you will now write a step by step saying that, okay, I am on the website, right? I've clicked on the login button. I've entered my username, entered my password, and then I'm clicking on. So this is just the plain way of saying it, right? So there are other ways, or there is a standard or a language or a syntax that you need to apply, right? To which will enable you to write it in a better way. That is what we'll look at when we get to what? When we get to Gherkin or Gherkin language, right? So it is a detailed set of conditions or variable under which a tester will determine whether an application or a software or one of its features is working as intended, right? I believe right now I'm speaking the language we are used to. Is no longer Excel, it's no longer SQL and all that. So we are not talking about software and working as intended and then testing it properly. So test cases are essential It is really an essential component of a software testing process and are designed to verify that a software meets its specified requirements and behave correctly in different scenarios. So when you are writing your test case, you have your different scenarios, right? And then all these scenarios has their steps. So when you are now testing that application, you are using so many other scenarios, right? So let's say, let me give you an example, that particular login functionality that you are testing. Let's say the first scenario that you want to test is you want to ensure that when you want to ensure that when you click on login, that when you use your valid username and valid password, that you'll be able to log in. So your first scenario will be, right? You are Your first scenario will be valid login details. That is your first scenario. Scenario, valid login details. So in that case, right, you are using welcome, Josh, welcome. So we are still on our first slide, which is what a test case is. You haven't missed much. So you are talking about the first scenario. The first scenario could be valid login detail, right? So you will now write your test case that, okay, given that you navigate to URL, which is to the website, and you click on the login button and you enter your username, valid username, and you enter your valid password and you click on login, then you should successfully log into that website, right? Or into your account, right? That is valid scenario. You can also write a test case for an invalid scenario, right? So the invalid scenario will now be invalid username, right? So now you want to enter an invalid username, but enter a valid password to see if you will be able to log in, right? So you can also have another invalid, which is using wrong username, entering wrong password to see if you'll be able to log in. You can also do another invalid scenario, which is trying to see if you can log in without even entering anything. Can you see? So when you are now designing your test kit, you can now do different scenarios, write different scenarios, right? But you are writing test case. You have the set of test case, but different scenarios. Do you get what I mean? So that is how to actually do that, right? So now, like I've said before, test cases are essential components. Okay, well, what I said before is that it is a detailed set of conditions or variables under which a tester determines whether an application, software, or one of its features is working as intended, right? Yes. So, as I was saying, test cases are an essential component of software testing process and are designed to verify that software meets specific requirements. Don't forget that before you start writing your test case, you have already been given requirements, and you are writing your test case out of that requirement. Like now, for example, we already have our requirement, right? We've already created our task. So we are waiting to start writing our test case, right? So you are writing your test case based on that requirement. So now, after writing your test case, you've done different scenarios. You will now be running down your test case to validate that that software has met that requirement, right? Is that clear? So, so the next one we'll be looking at are the components of a test case. What does a test case consist of? What does a test case consist of? So one, a test case consists of test case ID, right? So let's say you are designing your test case on an Excel sheet, right? you will need to ensure that all these components are on your test case. The first one is that you give your test case a test case ID. So the second one is test case title, right? Test case title. You give your test case a test case ID. So what test case title? So the test case ID, what does it mean? It's a unique identifier for your test case, right? So this test case ID is what makes it easy to reference and track. So let's say you are writing your test case on an Excel. So, and you are giving all your test cases ID. Your ID could be TC001 or TC1 or TC01. You can, which is the first one. The second one could be TC. TC means test case, right? 02. That is how you can just decide to give it any naming convention, any naming nomenclature you want. But if you are writing it on Azure, so Azure automatically give your test case an ID. So that ID is what you can use to identify it. We will do it, we will do all these things, you will see it, we'll do it live, right? So the second one I said is test case title. Test case title, right? You need to give your test case a title, right? That title could be a description, which is a brief description of the functionality or scenario being tested. A brief description. Like I've given you the scenario, which is verify user. You can say verify user can log in, right, with valid login details. It's a title. So what that test case is doing is to verify that a user can actually log in, or verify if a user can log in with valid details. It's a title. You can be writing another one, which is your invalid. You can also give it a title. Let's say you are doing a negative testing, right? You can also give it a title, which goes verify user can log in, right, with invalid username and valid password. That is another title. So the title you are giving it is based on the scenario or the functionality being tested, right? So another one we have on our list is test step. So a test step is a detailed set of instructions or action that the tester needs to perform to execute the test. Like I said before, giving a navigator URL is a set of action that I need to take, you as a tester. So let's say I've written a test case, say, giving a navigator URL, when I click on login, and I enter my username and I enter my password. There are some websites that when you want to log in, you need to navigate to the website. When you get to the website, you need to click on login button on the menu, header menu, before you see the login field pop out. Right? Some website, the moment you log in, navigate to the website, you will see a website like Facebook. Once you log in, once you get on the website, on the homepage, you will see the login feature. So you just enter your username and your password, and then you can log in, right? So let's say I want to write the step. The step will go, given I'm on the website for Facebook, right? When I enter my username, I enter my password and click on submit. Then I will successfully log into my Facebook page. Then is the expected result. When is the action you will take? Given is the precondition. We'll come to that in great detail, right? So, but if you're not using Gherkin syntax, don't be confused. I will talk us through what Gherkin syntax is. If we are not using it, we're just writing it in plain English, right? So you can say, uh, well, I don't want to use given when then, right? You can say, go to the website, right? Go to the website, enter your username, enter your password. You should be able to log in, right? So it's action, it's step that you are taking. That is what test step is all about. Test step is all about. So we have done test case ID, we have done test case title, we have done test step. The next one is test data. Test data. What does this mean, right? So test data is the specific input data or conditions required to execute a test. So let's go to the expected condition. So that is the next component your test case should have. The next component your test case should have is expected result. And what is an expected result? We've all thought through expected results over and over again. So the expected result is the anticipated outcome or behavior of the system after test steps are executed. So when you have executed that test steps, what is the outcome that you are anticipating or the behavior that you're anticipating? That is what expected results is, right? So like I said before when I explained this, when you are asked to test a button, let's say the login button, and they told you that once you hover, the login button should be red, should have a red color, but once you hover on it, it should turn to blue. So the expected result is upon seeing the login button, it should be red. But once you hover on it, hover on it like this, it should be what? Blue. That is your expected results, right? So now what is the actual result? The actual result is the result observed by a tester. The result observed by a tester during the execution of test. So let me take that button for example. They said when you hover on it, which is the actual result, it should be, this is purple, right? So, but once you are hovering on it and it's not purple and it turns green, what is your actual result? Your actual result becomes, go ahead and answer if you know it. Your actual result becomes
Expected results.
no. So what I'm trying to say, right? So I want to explain. I know the reason why I'm explaining this concept like this. I'm not just going forward. I want everyone to understand because we'll be writing the test case, right? So now I said I want to explain expected results again, right? So I'm saying that expected results is the anticipated outcome or behavior of that system. So now, when we are told that once we hover on this button that it will turn to purple, and we are hovering on it, right? What is your expected result?
So you're successfully
So your expected
doing that.
result, yeah, the expected result will be that it will turn to purple, right?
Purple.
Yes. So, but what is your actual result? Let's say you are hovering on it and it turns green, but the expected result says that it should turn to purple. But when you hover on it, it turns green. What becomes your actual result?
So
The
you're able
actual
to
result
observe the
become
color
green.
turning
Yes.
green.
Yes. So the actual result becomes that the button turns green, right? Good. So now we have status. Status. So what is the status? The status is the current state of the test case. So status could either be pass, fail, or not executed. So let's say, or it could sometimes be in progress, right? So let's say you are, well, it doesn't say in progress, right? Is when you're actually executing your test. So your test case should be pass, could be pass, fail, or not executed, right? So what does this mean? When you have written your test case and you've not executed it, what will your test case say? Not executed, right? When you have executed it and it fails, right? The status becomes fail, and
Fails.
when you executed it and it passed, your status will be passed. Note, your status can still, the status can still be in progress when you've started running it, but you stopped. It could be in progress, it could be paused, it could be whatever. But the three major status is pass, fail, and not executed, right? Is this correct? Component of a test case. I know why I'm mentioning it, because all of you will be writing your test case. You need to put test case ID. You need to enter your test case title. You need to enter your test step. You need to enter your test data. You need to enter your expected result, actual result, and status, right? So we'll go to the next slide. So the next slide is characteristics of a good test case. What makes your test case good, right? Or what are those characteristics that your test case need to possess, right, to make it a good test case? So good test cases possess several key characteristics that contribute to the effectiveness of the software testing process. And here are some of the characteristics of a good test case, which includes: one is clarity, and simplicity, right? Your test case should have a clear and concise instruction. You can see how I was saying, you don't need to write your test case to be too long, right? You don't need to write it as a story. It should be concise, right? And simplify. Just like I was saying, giving a navigator URL to the website. When I enter my username and I enter my password, right? And I click on login, then I should be able to log into the website or into my page. Very simple. It's easy, it's clear, it's simple, right? So the next one that we'll have is manageability and maintainability. So your test case should be organized and easy to manage, right? They should also be maintainable as the software evolves. Let's say you've written your test case and they are changing something, right? They are saying, oh, we are removing uh, login button to submit. You can easily, because you've written in simple, you can easily edit your test case to another version 1.2 or version 2, and then remove the login and put submit. So your test case will now given I navigate to the website or to Facebook. When I enter my username and I enter my password and I click on submit, then I should be able to log into my Facebook account. It's very easy. It should be maintainability. It should be manageability and what? Maintainability. So it's a good characteristics of what? A good test case. So the next one is traceability. Traceability. Your test case should be traceable. It should be traceable back to the requirements or user story they are testing, right? So when you are writing your test case, you should be able to trace your test case back to the requirements that you are writing it from. That is why we are creating, if you go to Azure DevOps, basically, when you create your test case, you link it to this user story so that once you come on the test case, you can click your user story and you trace it back. And your test case should be derived from the user stories, right? They should be linked and they should be derived from it. You don't write a test case of another functionality uh, under another user story, right? So the last one is reusability, right? Your test case reusability refers to the capability of using a test case in multiple scenarios across different parts of the software application or even in different projects. So sometimes there is a way you will write your test case, you will be able to use it across different parts of the software, right? So that is characteristics of a good test case. I'm sure there are many more, but I just
We're
picked.
missing one. We omitted one.
So which is
relevance to the
okay,
requirement.
relevance to the requirement. Thank you so much, Shade. So relevance to the requirement, your test case should directly related to the specified requirement or user story. So that kind of covers the traceability part of it as well. So it should be relevant. Like I said before, you do not write a test case that is not, let's say you are given to test a login and you're writing a test case for registration. That doesn't make sense, does it? So that makes that test case obsolete and unrelated to the requirements, right? So yeah, that's it, and we'll move on. So moving on to how to write a good test case, right? How do we write a good test case? First, you need to understand the requirements, right? You need to understand the requirement. So thoroughly understanding the requirement or user stories, right, related to the functionality you are testing, right, enable you to write a good test case because you've understood it. You've thoroughly understood it, right? And you know what the function should be. You've understood the step you will take. So that will help you to design a comprehensive and essential test case that are relevant to that functionality, relevant to that requirement that you are testing. Is that clear? So the second one is be specific and concise. Like I've given you an example, you can see how I say it. It's specific and it's concise. It's not ambiguous at all. You don't need to write a long test, right? So the third one is use a standardized format. Use a standardized format. And what are the standardized formats? So you have to follow a standard format for your test case. This typically includes, the standard format includes, depending on where you're writing your test case, let's say you are designing your test case on an Excel sheet. You need to include all the components, the test case ID, you need to include the title, you need to include the preconditions, you need to include the test steps, you need to include the expected result, actual result, and the status, if it is pass or fail, right? That is a standardized format of writing your test case. If you have a standard language or syntax that your organization is using, the one that is widely used for organization that is practicing BDD, which is behavioral driven development. They use Gherkin syntax and they use a syntax given when, then we'll come to that, right? So the next one we'll have is write clear and simple test steps, right? So you need to ensure that your test steps are clear and simple, right? You need to ensure they are what? Clear and simple. So the next one we'll have on our list is consider positive and negative. I've said it, you need to consider what? Negative and positive. Like when I was giving you scenarios on and then step by step on how you can test Facebook, I've given you positive scenario, which is using valid username and valid password. When you are writing, when you want to do your negative scenario, you also write a scenario such as invalid username and valid password. It's negative because you are not expecting the invalid username to, you're not expecting to use your invalid username to log in, right? So another negative is using invalid password and valid username. And then another one is using invalid username and invalid password, right? So that is it on consider positive and negative scenarios. The next one is verify one thing at a time. Verify one thing at a time. Each test case should focus on verifying one aspect of the system behavior, right? This helps isolate issue and facilitate easy debugging. Yesterday we had an issue with the SQL query, and then it was being debugged, right? So assuming that we'll have loads of SQL syntax that's been written, it becomes more difficult to debug. But since it was one line, it was easy to debug, right? So that is it for the on how to write a good test case. So the next one we'll go into is Gherkin syntax, Gherkin language. So Gherkin language, right? So we'll be looking at what a Gherkin language is. So Gherkin itself is a domain-specific language designed for writing executable specification of software behavior. It is primarily associated with behavior-driven development, BDD. So I've mentioned about behavioral-driven development, right? So Gherkin is a domain-specified language, all right, designed for writing executable specification of software behavior, right? It is primarily associated with behavioral driven what? Development, right? It is used to describe the expected behavior of software in a plain text format that is easy to read and understood, right? It is really primarily associated with behavioral driven development. We'll go into what the syntax is. Okay, so now we'll go into the syntax. I hope we all understood what Gherkin is. So now let's look at what Gherkin syntax is. Like I've said, Gherkin is didn't really mention that. So Gherkin serves as a bridge because what the question I was expecting is, what is this Gherkin? Why do we even use it? Right? So the main reason why we use Gherkin is it's easy to understand, right? It serves as a bridge between technical and non-technical stakeholders. So those who are not technical, because Gherkin is written in simple English, human readable, because it's associated with behavioral driven, how users behave, right? That is why it's widely used, right? And that makes it easy to understand. So stakeholders who are not technical, when they read it, they easily understand what you are writing, right? So it bridges the gap between technical and non-technical stakeholders, which allows them to collaborate on defining and understanding the functionality of that software system. So now we are looking at the syntax, right? So the Gherkin syntax is designed to be human readable. It is designed to be human readable so anyone can read it, right? So, and it's easy to understand, right? It uses a simple neutral language format to describe the behavior of a software, right? And then let's look at some of the common keywords. Some of the common keywords are feature, right? And the feature describe a high level features or functionality. So with this feature, right, we would see that when we start writing our automated tests. But for the case of the manual, the reason why I'm bringing it in here is just to introduce it to you, right? By the time we go into our manual, our automated test, you'll start seeing, because it's the same Gherkin syntax that our automation use, because we'll be writing in BDD, right? So you'll be seeing this feature. So introducing it now to you, the feature describe a high-level feature or functionality. So let's say when you are writing an automated test, your feature could be login, right? Then you can now write let's say you want to automate Facebook login page. So your feature could be Facebook login, right? That is. So that is your high-level feature or functionality, Facebook login. Then your scenario represents a specific test scenario. So which could either be positive or negative. One of the scenario like I've given to you is your verify user can log in using valid login details. It could be that could be one of your feature for valid scenario. And this scenario comes under manual testing. So under manual testing, you'll be writing your scenario, right? So now, what another major syntax is given when then. Given when then. They are very important, right? You'll be using it in most of your test case that you'll be writing. Given when then. Given is the precondition. Given represent the initial context, right? So when you are saying your precon, when you are saying your initial context is given, not actually the precondition, the initial context is given. So given is when what you are going to do before. Let's say in this case of testing Facebook, the given now will be I navigate to URL. So given I navigate to URL, because you're not actually testing navigating to URL, you want to test your login. But before you test the login, you need to navigate to the website, right? It could be given I navigate to the website or given I navigate to URL. But I would employ you to use given I navigate to Facebook, given I navigate to PrimeSoft, given I navigate to Twitter, given I navigate, that is your initial context, right? When is your action? When is action? So any action you are doing, action could be you entering your username because it's an action. When could be entering your password is an action. When is you entering your clicking on submit or login, it's an action, right? So whenever you are performing an action, that is your when, right? So putting it in context, your initial context, which is given, comes, you put it this way, given I navigate to Facebook, right? Then an action. When I enter my username or my valid username and I enter, I will come to the and, right? So and but are used for additional steps. So instead of, because we have three action now, because we have when I enter my field as an action, not when I enter my username as an action, when I enter my password as an action, when I click on submit button, submit as my action. You don't have to keep using when for all your action, right? So anyway, anytime you are going to repeat a particular step action, you use and. So this is how you now put it. Given I navigate to to Facebook, which is your initial context, right? When I enter my username and action, and instead of using when again, you will now say, and I enter my password, and I click on submit, right? That is when you now come to then. Then is your expected outcome. What are you expecting to happen when you've entered your username and you enter your password and you click on submit, then I must be logged onto my Facebook account. Then is the expected result. So that is why I usually call it giving when then. One of the most basic and most widely used of Gherkin centers, right? So we'll have the bot as well. Bot is also used to add additional step within a scenario, but we don't usually use bots, right? So, but you can use it. So take note. Another one is background. So background is usually when you will also do your automated test. That is when you also have background, right? Define steps that should be executed before every scenarios. So we don't usually use background when we are writing our manual test case, but you always use background when you are doing your automation. Don't worry, you will see that. Scenario outline also allow for definition of a template for scenarios with multiple sets of inputs data. You will also use that when you will start doing your automation. Example, also, you can use that when you are doing your automation as well. So the ones that are very important for your manual testing is your scenario and giving when then and most importantly. So every other one will come in when you start doing automation. So I just felt I should introduce it now so that when we start using it, you can recall and say, yeah, that will be mentioned, that has been mentioned before. So the next one we'll now go to is what is a test script? Test script. Okay, we'll be looking into what a test script is. So what is a test script? We've discussed what test case is. And now we want to talk about test scripts, right? And then we'll look at the difference between a test case and a test script, right? So a test script is a set of instructions that are intended to test if the functionality of the software work as expected. So now you have a test script, a set of a test script, right? You've written it, right? So you are now waiting for developers to have finished, obviously, working on the software. And when they say, yeah, this software will finish working on this, is working as it should be, or it should work, right? You can now run your test script. So if your test script pass, you know that the software is working as expected. If your test script fails, that means your software has got a bug in it and you need to report it, right? So test scripts is part of automated testing, and the testing team executes an automated test based on specific test scripts, right? So we as some organization you have, they've already written the test script for you. They want you to always run it at some interval, right? So you just come, the test script is there, you just run it. So it's usually part of automated testing, right? And then the script could either be written in specific language such as Java, it could be written in Python, it could be written in C#, right? So for the course of our training, we'll be writing our test script with on C#, right? We'll be writing it on C#. So yeah, so the next thing we want to go on is the difference between test case and test script, because most often we usually say, what is the difference between test case and test script? So purpose of test case to guide the testing team about what to test and what are the expected results, right? So the test case is, remember, that step-by-step approach, right, that you will use to execute your test. So the test case will guide you, right, on how to actually, on what the expected result is, right? Whereas the test script is used to perform an automated test based on specific requirements on the script, right? So the format for test case is written on manual. It's written manually, while the test script is written using a programming language. Like I've mentioned, it could either be C sharp, it could either be Java or Python or Ruby. There are so many other programming language. So the testing environment for test case is what? Manual testing environment. While the test script is what? Automation testing environment. Any question? I'll give room for question now before we go into the second chapter, which is we writing our test case. Any question? Because we'll start writing our test case soon. If there's anything you do not understand, ask now, because the next chapter will be we writing our test case. So now we want to design our test case, right? So remember that you can choose to design this case, this anyhow you want, right? You can decide to design this, your Excel sheet anyhow. You can decide to use different color. If you're not familiar with Excel, we'll have an Excel class sometime this week, right? So that will help you in that class. You can ask as many questions as you can. But for this one, we'll be using this simple, Excel, be using this simple Excel template, right? So this has already been designed. We'll have our project name, which is Facebook, right? We'll have our module name, which is obviously login functionality. We'll have created by and the created date. You can just put it. So if you can recall, I've mentioned, obviously I've said this Prime Soft project. So I've mentioned some of the components during our class. I mentioned some of the components of test case, right? So I mentioned that you have your test case ID, right? Can anyone mention another one that we mentioned before? Test case ID. Go ahead and mention if you can remember.
Case title.
Yes, title. Good. You can see the title login functionality. Yeah,
The step.
this test step. Good.
Test that data.
There's data. That is good. Expected results.
Expected results. Actual results.
Actual results and
And status.
status. Good. Great. So now we'll be writing our test case for Facebook. So this first part of writing our first test case, we will not make use of Gherkin syntax. Can you recall what Gherkin syntax is? The syntax: given, when, then. We'll have and as well, and we'll have our scenario. That is the most basic one that is widely being used for manual testing, right? So now we want to test Facebook. How do we write a test case for Facebook? How do we write test case for Facebook, right? So let's say when I navigate to, let me open a fresh browser. Let me open a fresh browser. New window. So now I want to test Facebook, right? It's www.facebook.com. So you have www. Right? So you can see. So when we want to write test case for Facebook, the first thing we do is to launch the browser, right? I launched the browser and then I went on www. You can see the browser could either be Chrome, it could either be your Edge, right? So I launched the browser and I entered www.facebook or https://www.facebook.com. And once I'm here,
So are
right?
you showing that?
Yes. Oh, can you not see my
I'm not
screen?
seeing it. No. Only
Okay.
seeing the Excel sheet.
Okay. So let me share my entire screen. Hang on a minute. Let me stop sharing and share again. Share screen. Yes. Can you see my screen? Can you see the Facebook?
Yes.
Yes. So what did I do here, right? So what I did at first is, let me just copy this. So what I did at first is, let me close this. So what I did firstly was to launch my browser, right? So I go and click on new window. I've launched my browser and I've entered my www.facebook, right? Then I'm here, right? I want to log into Facebook. It's asking me to enter my username or my email address or phone. And then it's asking me to also enter my password. And when I enter my password, what is the next thing I need to do? I click on login. Then if I enter use valid username and valid password, then I should be able to log into Facebook, right? So you as a tester, when you want to test it, let's say they ask you to test the login functionality, you want to test this Facebook and they ask you to test this login because this login is a functionality. So what you will do, what are the steps that you will use to test this? Is to write the first one, you will launch your browser, you will enter your URL, right? And then you enter your email address, which should be a valid email address or phone number. You enter your password, you click on this. So that step that you used to do this is what you should write as your test case. So you could write it in an ordinary format or using a Gherkin syntax to write it. So like I said, most organizations, okay, practice BDD. They've adopted behavioral driven development. And like I said, Gherkin syntax is what primarily associated to BDD. So we usually write our test case using the BDD, the given when then, which is the Gherkin syntax. Do you get it? So what we're going to do is we're going to design or actually write our test case without using the BDD, right? After we have designed it, we'll now use the BDD to do it again, right? So I will go back to my Excel sheet. We've seen the Facebook, we've come to it. You've seen the step that it will take us to actually do it, right? So let's say we are writing this out of the requirement. The requirement will say, as a user, right, or as a Facebook user, I want to log in, right, to my Facebook so that I can access my Facebook. That would be what the user story will say. And then the acceptance criteria could have different scenarios. We can say, given I am a user on Facebook, when I enter my correct email address and my password, my correct email address or my phone number, and I enter my password and I click on login, then I should be able to log in. That is what the user story and acceptance criteria will look like. Do you get what I'm saying? So now what you will now do is you write your test case based on what the acceptance criteria has said, right? So let's go back to Excel. Let's go back to Excel and design our test case. So I have this template, all right? So now, remember I told you earlier that before you, the first thing you do is to put your what test case ID. Note that this thing we're doing on Excel, that you don't usually do it on Excel all the time at work. So unless the organization wants you to write your test case on Excel, but most organizations that use Azure DevOps, you will write your test case on Azure DevOps. Some organizations that use Jira, you write your test case on Jira. But we're practicing it on here, and then after which we could go on Azure DevOps to write it. We must have understood and written it here, right? So when I want to give our test ID, right? So we'll start by entering. Obviously, you click here, and then you can enter. We want to give our test case ID as C. No, so our test case ID, we want to enter T, right? C01, right? Can you see that? Can you see my screen all right?
Though it's tiny, but we can see it. It's tiny.
Yeah. What can I do to make it bigger? Uh,
And expand it.
let me zoom it in a little bit more. For some reason, I'm not able to zoom it in. Let me see what I can do. So, oops. Is it any bigger now? I've tried to expand it. Yeah, so it should be better now. How about it now? Should be better now. Let me try and see if I can expand this one as well to make it more bigger. Let's see how it comes out.
That's good now.
Yeah, I think it's better.
Mm.
Yeah, yes, good. So now you can see how I did this, right? I've entered TC01. 01, TC is test case. You can decide to call it anything you want, right? TC is just test case 01, right? So our test condition, right, which is our scenario. So we want to say that our scenario will be, the scenario I want to have will be login with valid details, right? I want to test the scenario, which is my first scenario, login with what? Valid details. So I'll put, one second, I'll put, let me press, okay. So the first scenario I want to type in here will be login, right, which is a login with valid details. Right? So login with valid details. So, when you are logging in with valid details, what are you expecting, right? So you're expecting to use a valid email address and a valid password. That will be your test data, right? So the scenario, which is test condition, login with valid details. So what is our test step? Can someone tell me the first step? I've mentioned that before. We're now writing our test step.
Be given.
No, we're not using given now. After this one, we'll use given. I just want us to write it, I just want us to write it without applying the given. After that, we can do the given. So the first step you want to do is to launch
the browser.
You want to launch the browser, right? You want to launch your browser.
Okay.
You launch the browser. So after you've launched the browser, what else do you want to do?
Your email address.
You go to Facebook, because when you launch the browser, you need to enter.
Okay, yeah.
Go to Facebook, right? So you do it step by step.
Yeah, okay.
Facebook, right? Go to Facebook, which is HTTP, right? HTTPS, right? Then then /www dot, right, facebook.com. Can you see how I'm writing it now? So I've written first step, launch the browser. Second step, go to Facebook, HTTPS. This is what will be tested. This is the URL, right? The third one will be what?
The email address.
You enter what? Email.
Your email address.
Yes, you can enter your email address. So you enter email address, right? So, or what is on there? So you can enter email address, okay, only. Remember that you can use phone number, because Facebook says you can use phone number.
Yeah.
You want to use email address, right? So what is the next step?
Your password.
Enter your password.
Enter
Enter
password.
your password.
Right? Enter password. What is the next step?
So you'll be able to
After you enter your password,
see your account.
You need to do something.
Log in.
You need to log in. You need to click on login.
Click on login.
Yes, you click on login button. Don't forget it's a button, right? You click on login button, right?
Oh, yeah?
Yes. So now, this is just the normal way of doing it. So when you've done that, you click on the login button. Yeah. Oops.
Disappeared.
Yeah. Click on login, right? These are the steps you need to follow, right? So when
you must write it like that. You don't need to write maybe say just password or email address.
No, you write it like this,
Okay.
right? Yes. So when we go further, there's something we'll call writing your test case in imperative and declarative, right? But we will come to that much, much more later. So now let's follow it step after step after step. Okay? Now you log in. So now we've written our test steps, right? We've written our test steps. Now let's go to the precondition. What are your preconditions? What are your preconditions? So what do you think are the things that you need to have? The condition that you need to have to be able, that is what the precondition is. What are the conditions that you need to have to be able to run this test? Can anyone mention any? You need to have
Foundation.
good internet condition,
Okay.
right? Because if you don't have internet condition, will you be able to execute this? Will you be able to go to Facebook?
No.
No, you need a good internet condition. But note that when you are writing this on Azure, right, you won't have the option for precondition. Most organizations wouldn't put the precondition. But when you are doing it on Zapier Scale on Jira, so there is this precondition. Most often, you don't necessarily need to write it, right? So take note of that. Your test case will come by default, right? Your test condition, which is your scenario, you must write. Your test step, you must write. Sometimes the precondition you don't, but it's a good practice to write it. So what other precondition do you need to have? What other precondition? So you could say a valid email address, but valid email address comes under your test data, right? So now this is our precondition, right? So we could also say that your test data, I know Joshua has mentioned it. What is our test data here? Joshua, can you remind us? You mentioned that.
And
Username
the
and password.
password and username.
Good. Valid
Password and username.
Yes. Email address. Don't forget email.
Okay.
Email address. Valid email. That sounds like Casey's voice. Is it Casey?
No. It's
Okay.
Blessing.
Oh, Blessing. Yeah. Nice to hear your voice, Blessing. So valid email address, right? And then you can give your email address depending on what you are testing with, the email address you are testing with. So let's say that my email address is test123 at, right? Test.com. This is our email address, right? So we need a password, right? So valid password. So it's always a good practice not to expose your password, right? Okay, so even as a tester, you don't expose your password. So in this case, I will not expose this test password. So therefore, I will use this to represent my password. Okay, so and then I can now put 1 2. So this is my password, right? So now we've written our test condition, we've written our test step, we've written our precondition, we've entered our test data, right? And we want to write our expected result. Recall, right? When there is in every step, launch the browser, you should have expected results. So when you launch the browser, what is your expected result? What are you expecting?
To log in.
No, you are launching
You're
the
expected
To log in.
to go to the Facebook.
Log into Facebook.
So because you've not gone to Facebook, remember, recall, this is launch the browser. So once you launch the browser, when I launched my browser, what happened? When I launched my browser, right?
You have to see a Facebook page now.
No, the only time you see a Facebook page is when you go to Facebook, when you enter www. So when I launched
Okay, you go where you will see your email address.
So okay, let me
is
do
it
it.
not?
Yeah, let me do it okay for our own sake. So
Okay.
Now I haven't entered this. Let me remove. I haven't entered the page.
Okay, you see
So I've just launched my browser. Have you seen? I've just launched my browser. So what has is browser landing page displayed. This is browser landing page.
Okay.
So when I launch my browser, let me launch it again. Launch. Can you see browser landing page? That is the first one. So when I now enter https /facebook.com and click on enter, that is when the Facebook will display, right? So we'll go back and we'll continue, right? Now, the first step is launch the browser. What is the expected condition? The expected condition is browser
landing or something.
Landing page. Yes, browser landing page. Page is what? Displayed. Right? Browser landing page is displayed.
No, I'm not saying that, you know.
You can see.
No, I'm only saying
I think you can only do that when you go to the font, just like you did on the ID.
Oh,
I
yes.
highlight it.
Yes, that's right. So let me go 18. So can you see that? Browser landing page displayed. Can you see that?
I can see it. Well, it was Joshua that
Okay.
asked that.
Yeah. Okay. So browser landing page displayed, right? So the next one is go to Facebook, right? We're going to Facebook. What happened when we go to Facebook? What is our expected result? Are we expecting when we go to Facebook?
Facebook page.
That is it, Blessing. Chidi. Facebook landing.
Oh, landing again. I said
Facebook,
Facebook page.
yeah. So why I won't say Facebook page is if you log in, it's still a Facebook page that will display, right?
Okay.
If you
Okay,
are
you just see the
moving
landing.
around, if you're moving around Facebook, it's still Facebook pages, right? But
Yeah.
the moment you log in is the landing page or the home
Okay.
page. You could call it home page.
Oh yeah.
You get Facebook homepage. Okay, let's remove the landing page. Let's put Facebook homepage. Facebook homepage because it's actually a homepage. Facebook
Yeah.
homepage, right? Facebook homepage. What is displayed?
Yeah.
That is why our work is easy. You could imagine you're at work and this is what you are doing. Hmm? Wouldn't you be enjoying it?
So can it happen like that in a real life situation? You
Yes,
just be doing that.
this is what you do. Oh, for some
Oh,
reason.
interesting.
Yeah.
The first writing has disappeared.
Yeah, it's because this I've put this too much for Joshua to see it. Yeah. Don't worry, I'm just,
Wow.
yeah, let me remove this. Hopefully we can see it. So I'm not trying to beautify this. As when I'm trying to beautify this, I could make it even more beautiful. But I'm just trying to pass the information across.
Yeah.
But can you see this one? If you can, I can continue.
I can see it. I don't know about Josh and Blessing.
Okay, Blessing, can you see?
I'm only
Yeah, I can
seeing the
see it.
Facebook.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good.
I'm
I
seeing
can
the
see it.
Facebook
Yeah, Facebook
page.
homepage is displayed.
Homepage is
Yeah,
displayed.
it's displayed. Good. So now, the next step is enter email address. What
Okay.
are you expecting when you enter your email address? What is your expectation?
Email address
Valid email address.
valid. Email address address
Email address.
page or
Email
icon.
address as
Your
accepted.
expectation is that your email address should be successfully entered, right? Because when you enter your email address and it's taking it, so when you enter a valid email address, you should expect that Facebook will take it.
Yeah.
Because there are some field that when you are trying to enter a field, is telling you that that field is not valid, that the email address you're providing is not valid.
Valid is true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you're providing a valid email address, but Facebook is telling you, or not Facebook, that website is telling you that the email address you're providing is not valid, even when it's valid. So when you enter your email address, a valid email address, you should expect it to successfully enter, right? So email address is successfully entered. Do you see that? So the same thing with the expected results when you enter your password. That what? Password.
Yeah, the password will be successful entered too.
Yeah, that's right. So, like I said, this is what we'll do every single day. But obviously, you are not doing it on just login. You are writing test cases on different other aspects of software.
Yeah.
So, yeah, password is successfully entered. Right. So now, when you click on login, what are you expecting? When you click on login button,
It will take you to Facebook.
yes. So when you click on login, you're successfully what? Logged
Look.
into
Facebook
into your
Facebook account.
Facebook account. Oops. Yes, you successfully log into your Facebook account. And that is your expected results. So this is what this test case, some organization, you could be employed and your work is just writing test case. right? It's not me, for me, I will not enjoy it because you'll just be there writing
You won't learn more, right?
yes, so you just be there. Some people will like it, they will just be there typing away using their accepta there's a requirement the BA has written and just be writing their test case. What is their own? They are getting their money, right? But you will not enjoy the benefit of, and someone else will just come and take your test case and just go and be executing it.
Exactly.
So your own, you are not executing, yours is just writing test case if it's a big organization that have
So,
a
so,
testing team.
so
So
assuming you have another organization, you can just copy, and their requirement is the same with this. You can just copy this and paste there.
absolutely. So if your BA is writing it properly, some BAs do not write it properly, right? Do not write their acceptance criteria properly the way you would just
Okay.
copy. You can be in an organization, sometimes your BAs are writing it properly. You just copy it and paste it, that's all. That's all. So, but sometimes your BA is not writing it properly. So you now use your experience, right? So now arrange it, tweak it, make it make sense. Because if it's someone that will be executing your test case, that person need to be able to follow it. So let's say we provide this test case now for someone else, or we'll give it to you, and you are following it step by step. You'll be able to execute this test case now, won't you?
Yeah.
Because yeah, you will. So that is it. So now, right? When you have, this is your test case, right? When you have executed this test case, you've gone, let's say, because this is how the test case will be. The actual result will not be there, and the status will not be there, right? So
Okay.
let's say your job is to write test case for an organization, right? You've written one test case now for valid scenario. You can write another one for invalid scenario, right?
Okay.
So the next one, if we want to write another one for invalid scenario, how do we? I want us to think of writing another one for invalid scenario before we can now execute it, because we are going to execute this test case that we've written, right?
Okay.
So now, how do we write for invalid scenario, right? So which is our test condition, now becomes login with invalid
Invalid
email address.
details.
So
But please, I have a question before you
yeah,
proceed, if
yeah,
possible.
yeah, go ahead.
So, so according to the test data, when you log in your valid
Mhm.
username,
Yeah,
hmm,
yeah.
so what we the expected result is it browser landing page when you log in your valid email address, your valid username, sorry.
No, so when you enter your valid email address, it should be the email address is successfully entered. So that field
Okay,
should
the
be,
email address is also the username, right?
yeah. So for Facebook, we went on Facebook, it's saying email address, not username.
Okay,
So some login
okay,
functionality
email address,
like the prime sort will ask you for username, right? I think so,
username,
username if
okay.
you want to log in. But Facebook is asking you for email address or phone number. So remember that if you're a tester and you are writing this test case, remember that when you went on the Facebook field, right? The Facebook field says email address
Mm,
or phone number. So you will also write another test
yeah.
case using phone number. Do you get that?
Okay, sorry, but I was expecting that when you enter your email address, the
Mhm.
expected result would be something like maybe email address accepted. I'm only asking them because I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not
Yes.
trying to.
So you could, well, so you could do that, but the only reason I wouldn't say expected result, yeah, email address accepted could be right. You could also say email address accepted, right? Yeah, that is right. Remember, it's simple English, right? So long as the executor, or sometimes in most cases, you will be the one that will execute it. So long as you understand it, is correct, right? So, but remember to use, instead of using email address accepted, so you could say it's entered, right? Because your test step says enter email address. So you want to ensure that it's entered successfully. Do you get how it's flowing? Do you get that, Joshua? Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, we'll continue.
yeah.
So so the next one we are going to do is sign up with valid email address, or login with valid email address. We're not doing sign up, we're doing login, right? Login, sorry, is it valid or invalid? For negative,
Invalid.
with invalid. Yeah, invalid email address. This is our negative. Can you record the older negative that I say that you can, the other positive I say you can do? I say you can also do another positive. When you go on Facebook, Facebook says enter your email address or phone number. So as a tester, you will test using email address and you will also test using phone number. Do you get valid phone number that you've used? So, but we are sticking on one positive and let's do one negative. I've mentioned that you can also do so many negative, but we'll just focus, on doing one for the sake of time. So now log in with what? Invalid email address. So what are our test steps? I won't write until you tell me what to write. Test step. Our first test step is what? Hello, our first test step when we want to test for invalid email address.
So launch invalid browser.
No, you don't launch invalid browser. so, so,
Because in this case, like, what will you do?
So,
Okay, log in with
so
invalid
sorry,
email
sorry.
address.
What was the question, please?
the question is, I want you people to give me, right, the test step for this invalid email
Invalid.
address scenario.
Okay. You still need to.
Okay.
It's the same thing. You need to launch a browser.
Absolutely, blessing. You are so you need to first thing is that you need to launch.
You launch your browser.
Yeah.
Then still go to
So
Facebook.
launch your browser.
Mhm.
Launch the browser. Yeah, the browser. And the
Then you go
second
to
one
your
is
Facebook.
you go to Facebook. That's right.
Then
I
you
would have said go
you
to
can enter invalid email address.
Absolutely. I'm loving it. So go to Facebook, which is
Brenda is awake today.
Yes.
That's good.
I said today will not be like yesterday. Bless you know what I mean.
No, I don't even know. I don't want to know.
So you said the next one is what? Enter.
Enter the invalid email address.
Absolutely. Enter invalid. Yeah. Enter invalid. Yes. Email address. Yes. So the next one.
Then that will be invalid password. So, or it can be valid password, but what you
Yes,
can use
that's
valid
it.
password.
Yes, because the scenario we are testing is
Is invalid
invalid
email
email
address.
address. Assuming we are testing invalid email address and invalid password, then we
Then
have
you
to
enter both.
yeah,
Invalid
correct, absolutely. Enter valid email
email address.
password.
Password.
Valid password, yeah.
Yes, and then the next one is what?
You click on your login.
Click on login. Yes. So our test condition remains the same.
Yeah.
Our
Good
precondition,
internet.
internet. Like I said, if you are writing it on Azure, you don't need to put your test condition. Something that some test management tools, such as Affair, will require you to put your preconditions. So that's why I'm stating it. So our test data. Anyone going to give me test data?
Test data should be
Invalid
invalid email
email
address.
Good. Invalid. Yes. I'm glad you're getting the gist. Invalid email address. And our invalid email address could be, let's say, test one, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's no there's no .com, right? So, or it could have .com, but it's not registered already, right? So you could have anything as your invalid email address. And another test data would be what?
The valid password.
Valid password.
Password.
Yeah, and note that our password could be anything. We don't want to expose our password, so we could use this as our password and 2, 3. So now our expected results again. So same as before.
Yeah.
When we browse, when we
Yeah, the only
yeah,
difference there
it
would
could
be
be exactly. So one would just be only different. The browser
landing
landing
page.
page is displayed, right? So the second one, Facebook home page is displayed. And the third one, when you enter your valid email, your invalid.
Invalid. The email address will not be successful.
So Facebook,
It
when you
could be
enter, so
successful.
it will enter. It will enter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it will enter.
It will enter.
Facebook, yeah, unless most Facebook it will enter, unless the requirement says that when you enter invalid, you should throw an error, right? You will put it. But for now, even if you put invalid or incorrect email address, it will enter. So email address, right, is successfully
No, but in Facebook, invalid email address doesn't enter.
invalid email address. Does it not
But
enter?
you've not logged into Facebook. You're only at the Facebook end.
Yeah, you are just entering it.
You are just entering, but you've not logged in.
Yeah, entered. Right. So don't worry, guys. You'll see where we'll get to it. So when you enter your password.
Sorry, the email address is successfully entered. Is it going to be successful? Okay, that's when you log in now.
Yeah.
So when you are entering it, it will enter.
When you're entering
Yeah,
it,
exactly.
Enter, yeah.
Where what you will be expecting is now when you now click on login.
Click on login, it will be okay.
Right. When you click on login. So when you click on login, error message
will appear.
Display. So what you're expecting is error message. Right? So in the requirements, the BAs will provide you the accurate error message you will see. Right? So you will put it here. Right? So you also need to validate that when you put that error, when you enter your incorrect username, incorrect
email address
and you've entered the correct password, that when you click on it, that exact error message that the BA has given you is what you should see. Right? Yes, is what you should see. So for this case, the error message for Facebook, let me see if I'm able to paste it. So the correct error message is this. Right? So this is the correct error message. So this should come down. I don't want to start moving this around. Oops. See.
You're gonna mess it up.
Yeah. I want to move this a little bit. It's not looking good like this, is it? Yeah. So let me move it. Yes. I was clicking on the wrong side. So this is the error message. Email address. When you now click on login, so the expected condition is email address or mobile phone number you entered isn't connected to an account. Find your account and login. Right. So this is our test case. Right. So now we want to execute it and then put the status. Right. So now is our test case is done. Let's say your job is to write test case. You've written it. You just attach it to the story. You move your story, your task to done. You're done. And you go for a cup of tea. Right? So the person that his job is to now test it will now come and pick up. Sometimes you'll be the one that will write it and you'll be the one that will test it. Most often. Yes. So I know someone that was employed to just write test case. The person did it for 6 months. I was like, I don't actually know what is going on the other side of testing. So she started looking for another job that would, expose her to every other part of testing. So yeah. So now the person that will pick it up, right? The person will read the test case, the precondition, the scenarios, and everything. The person has understood. We missed out on one thing here. We missed out on test ID. So this will be test C02. Right? If we have another one, test C03, and then the list goes on and on and on. So now we want to write our test. We want to run it, right? So the first step is say launch the browser. You go to Facebook, you will go to your browser and launch a browser. Let me copy this. So this is how to run your test now, right? You launch your browser. Let's launch our browser. We've launched our browser. So now let's go back. So I'm not showing you how to do your testing. So the first step says launch your browser. Our expected condition is browser landing page display. right? We don't know our actual condition. So this is our expected condition, landing page display. So if we launch our browser and landing page display, that is our actual result is that the expected condition or the application is working as expected, right?
Yeah.
Right? So now we've launched our browser, and when we launched our browser, did browser landing page displayed or not?
Yeah, it displayed.
So that means that the browser is working as expected. So we can say working as expected, right? You don't want to repeat landing page is displayed. It's working as expected. The only time you have to put it is if it's not, right? Yeah. So browser is working as expected because apparently your focus is not on obviously launching your browser, because let's say you are working for Facebook. Facebook is not the owner of the browser. So that is not your main focus, really. So now, right? So the step, what will be the status here?
Pass.
Pass. Right? Now, you go to the second stage. The second stage says go to Facebook. Your expected result is Facebook homepage display. So,
Displayed.
right? So the next thing you go do is you go to let me ensure that I'm on the right one. Yeah. So now you go to Facebook and then you click on enter. Facebook homepage display, right? So you
Yeah.
do your test, and then what happens? It's working as what's expected.
Expected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the status will be what's passed.
Pass.
Yeah. Right. So once we've done that, the next step is enter email address. This is our step. Enter email address. So go to Facebook, or we'll enter email address. So let's copy our test data because we already have it here. Let's copy our test data. We'll enter email address.
But
Yeah.
I'm not seeing what that's playing. I don't know why.
So we've entered our email address. So can
Yes,
you see?
you need glasses.
So I think your internet could be your internet. It could be that it's a bit slower than us. So yeah. So you've entered your email address. What will be your actual results? Your actual
Yeah,
result
as expected too.
as expected. Remember, it mustn't always be as expected. You could say email address entered, right?
Although, yeah, you don't
Yeah,
know if it's a wrong email until you
yeah,
click login.
yeah. So you could say email address entered, right? Yes. So you could remember that we always say when we are doing the theory, we are saying that, yeah, the expected results, the actual result should meet the expected results. Can you recall? Yeah, we always say that when you are testing, that you ensure that, yeah. So we could also put it here, email address entered. Can you see? So we've entered the email address, and we'll go back and we'll enter the password. If you become a
So
pro,
are you going to say pass now, or you're going to leave the...
yeah, I will say pass, because I successfully, that particular step has passed.
Pass. Yeah.
Yes. So I've entered my password, right? I've entered my password. So I'll go back and enter my password. And I've entered my password and it's successfully entered. So I'll go back and enter my password. And then it's passed as well. So, and this one is passed as well. So now we'll click moment of truth. We'll click on so we'll click on login right now. So if this is a valid email address that I've entered, and this is a valid password I've entered, remember that when you are testing, you don't do it you do it on the testing environment, right? So if this email address and password are valid, if I click on this, it will take me to my Facebook account, right?
Yeah.
But because for the purpose of training, I'm using this as a valid email address and a valid password.
So it's not a valid email address then?
Well, it's not a valid email address, right? But if you are testing an organization, you need to use a valid email address. So assuming I enter my valid email address and password, it will pass. And click on this, it will enter.
In this case now, we're not going to say whether pass or fail.
So
We will say it's pass now.
No, how can you say it's pass? Did you see anything?
so
It's
No, this is just
listen, right?
practice.
This is just practice. You want to see my Facebook account?
Oh my
so,
God.
so you're gonna say it's pass, right?
Yeah.
When you are testing it for, let's say we are testing it for Facebook. So Facebook will give us a valid email address and a valid password. and will give us invalid email address or invalid password. So once we do that, it will pass, right? If I put my valid email address and valid password here, it will pass and I will enter Facebook, right? But yeah, for the purpose of this training, let's not log into Facebook before we start looking at Facebook and forget our testing. All right. So the same thing is what you do for, let me move this away. So the same thing is what you do for this one. You can see they've all passed, right? So, okay, so they've all passed, right? So now for the invalid one, right, it's still the same, right? When we run it, okay, the expected result will still be the same. This will still be the same, and this will still be the same. And the last one, right? The last one, okay, password. I haven't done password. So password will still be the same. Password will still be the same. But the last one, which is when you now click on login. So let's now go to Facebook and click on login, right? Because we've entered invalid. Where is our browser? Right? Let's go to Facebook and click on login. Login. Don't tell me you will. Right? Okay, it's loading. You can see it's loading. So I've entered username. Wait. So right. So I've entered invalid password. Right? This is an invalid username, right? Invalid email address. And when I click on login, so can you see? Okay, so it's saying that the password. So let's assume we provide a valid password. Let me provide this valid password. And when I click on login, right? Facebook, don't for my hand. Give me error message for email address. So what it's supposed to do is to, you see how it's giving us error message for password. So it was meant to give us error message for email address. Right? Can you see? Can you see
It's
the error
just giving
message?
us for the password.
Password. Yes, that is because the password I entered is not correct. But I'm trying to get the email address one. So, but in a good scenario, right? Let me use another one. So let's enter this at gmail.com, right? And then login. Let's see what we have. Still loading. Still loading. Yes. So can you see the email address you entered isn't connected to an account? So what happened is that I entered my correct password.
Password, okay.
Yes, I didn't want to do that before, but to get this error message, I had to, right? So I
Yeah.
entered it, and then it gave us that. So that is to say that our test has passed as well. So all this one will be passed, 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 passed as well. And our expected results here will be the same with our actual results, right? So that is it for this way of writing it, right? So let's now look at, which is the last stage, all right? The way we will be writing it in our place of work, right? Still the same Facebook, but I want to use a more modern way of actually writing it. And that way is using Gherkin syntax. Using what? Giving, when, then. I say that the giving is the initial context, the when is the action, and is when you are repeating anything, right? When you are repeating the initial context, you use and. When you are repeating the action, you use and when you are repeating the expected result, you use and. So how do we do this? That same step that we wrote before, how do we do it? So let's start. The first one is the initial context. What do we use on the initial context? What do we use on the initial context? We
Is the
use
given.
given. That's right. You use given. So it becomes, and when you are using Gherkin, right, you usually because it's behavioral driven development, BDD. Let me write it here. BDD. behavioral driven development. So you use the mindset of a user. You as a tester will be acting as if you are the user, right? So the way you write it is giving user navigate to Facebook website, right? Giving user navigate to Facebook website. You put the website, right? So the action is what? When user enter email address, right? So I said that when you are repeating anything, any action, you use and. So the next one is and user enter their password. The next one is and user enter. So user
The
enter
password.
no, the third one is you're no longer entering and user click on login button, right? Then the expected results becomes Facebook pages displayed. Can you see this one is more simple?
Yeah, this one is more simple.
So what you should always remember is, right, giving initial context, which is giving I am on Facebook, or giving user navigate to Facebook. The next one is when action, giving initial context, when is action, and you can use it to repeat several actions. Then you use it for your actual expected results, right? So this is your step. You can now go ahead and enter your expected results. So your expected result, when you navigate to URL, when user navigate to URL, you can say user successfully navigates, right? Navigate to Facebook, right? That is your expected results. That is your expected results, right? User successfully navigate to Facebook. When user enter password, because now you are user focused, right? User successfully entered their email address. Right? So the next one, no, this is user, not use. User, right? So the next one is and user enter and user
successfully entered their password.
Oh, I forgot to write Facebook here. Facebook. So the next one is and user successfully enter their password successfully. Then, oops, why did it disappear? Control Z. So let me remove one this here. Right. So, and the next one is and user click on login page, right? And login button. You can say when user click on login button, admit to section. It seems they're calling us back. So when user click on login button, you can say user, right? User successfully click on
login
button. Then Facebook page should display. So it should be user, right? Successfully, right? Viewed or logged into his or into their Facebook account. Right? So this is how on Azure, this is how you'll be writing it. Because on Azure, you'll be writing given when then you put using your given, then put this, put. So when we start writing that test cases, those tickets that you've been assigned to, right? You will be given access to Azure, and this is how you will write it.
Okay.
So, but on the meantime, all the ticket that has gone into sprints, right? I want all of you to write the test case the way I've written it on this format. and also write it on this format as well, right? So when you are now giving access to Azure, what you will do is just you copy it over to Azure, right? And then I will walk with through how to write your test case on Azure.